sufficient. There's negative and positive efficacy. There's low and high. So yours was the high. It's efficient, quick, works. Shock therapy, it'll work. And then there's one more which I really, really like, which you wouldn't have thought of. And this is Phil Riley's one. How many of you have stayed up till 2 a.m. one morning preparing this brilliant lesson? Brilliant. And you know the kids are just going to love it. You just know they're going to sort of grab onto it. And you come in the morning with this lesson and some little animal destroys the entire environment and sort of tromps your lesson into little bits. And that's when it can happen too. Because you wanted to attach to that person, and if you're a primary, you want to attach them directly. You want them to connect to you. If you're a secondary, you want them more to come through the physics or the maths or the whatever it is. You want them to connect to the subject that you so dearly love, but you want that attachment. And so they talk about attachment theory. And then you see the child is very hurtful. They're hurting you. And you just react out of hurt. And he's playing with that a lot now. But that's sort of because attachment theory is the theory of the year, theory of the month, and everyone loves it. But it's an interesting concept. Does anyone recognise themselves in any of those three? Because everyone does this sometimes. Any favourite? It'd be an interesting thing, because imagine the different kinds of PD you'd need. If you were responding to one or other of those, you'd have to have a different... I'm going to assume efficacy, mainly. Not really, but mainly. But in fact, I'm going to talk about techniques that will achieve certain outcomes. The outcomes, and I'll go through that now with you very briefly. So this is what I'm talking about, okay? This is really what I'm offering you. And I'm going to do this next session, then we're going to get into the skills part of it. I think it's pretty clear. Ignore 3 and ignore 2, because we're not necessarily implementing those. But certainly, I would like to think we can take this a bit further, and I'm pushing it a bit. But if you would like to think about how you provide, because the more I get in this coping, the more I realise the need for support. So how you might respond to that, how could you set up a system where, first of all, teachers might be recognised, particularly those who need support. Support could be provided. Now I can provide some of those skills. I know teachers find these skills relevant and helpful. But I don't know how it gets implemented, because you can't rely on, you want a whole school change, but you can't rely on some of those teachers to make the changes you require. They're not going to be able to do it. So this is a new dilemma for me. How do you help those teachers who are last to make change? Now, I don't know if you want to make that, it's a bit hard to put that on learning leaders, but it's something you're going to have to think about. So when you ask these strategies, these are some earlier schools that have done this for 2 years. 40% say they did them anyhow, and that's good, because that means they resonate, those 40, at least with 40% of people. Another 40% say that after they tried them, and this is what they say, between 86 and 99% have reported these as definitely or probably useful. The idea of rights and responsibilities. They see this as very effective, having done it. How many of you here have not got rules in your class, the word rules, anywhere, and you only have values or rights and responsibilities? Hand straight up. Okay. So theoretically, they are saying to you, you're better off without your rules, these teachers. You have a stronger power base when you are there as a protector of people's rights. You are an agent of the group. You will gain referent power when you act, if you set it up right. They will talk about remaining calm. That's easy to say. I don't know anyone can train you in that. How many of you have schools where the only person to talk with an exited or isolated child is a teacher who exited that child or isolated that child? The only person that gets to talk to them. How many schools? Wow. Okay. That would be part. They are saying that this is critical in the steps, and I agree with them. For C kids, it is critical because, and C is an exited child, basically, C or D. Once a child is exited, you have to work on reprogramming their understanding of right and wrong. The punishment, the manipulation of the behaviour did not work. You now have to deal with the internals, not the externals. So that will be important, and if someone else does it, you lose the referent power, and that would be a mistake. So I'm going to talk in the next few sessions about how to talk to kids one-on-one. Beginning with, don't say, come in, sit down, I want to talk to you. What kind of power is that? Yeah, it's a legitimate power, it comes from authority. Instead you lie and you become non-authentic and you smile and you say, oh, I'm really pleased you made it. And you're not. You'd rather not be there, and you wish the kid had just absconded or something. But instead you say, I'm really pleased you made it. And then you say something like, I need you to help me understand what happened in class. And then you move on from there. So you work from referent power. These are skills. Then comes series. You've all got that, right? There's not one of you in the room wouldn't have a system with series of consequences. How many of you have a system for building relationships with challenging children? How many of you, for example, in primary, make it compulsory for primary teachers to visit specialists in art to see that rotten kid doing something productively? Anyone got systems in place? That's something we can talk about because that's a principle. How do you set up for teachers to gain relationship outside of their own teaching environment? Because it's not going to happen there. Has anyone got anything like that? I mean, phys eds get it automatically, they've got such an advantage. But